Base is dropped on another Friday here at SDH. Apologies for 9:01. You're so used to doing something. And you see now, this is how far behind I am. I haven't even poured my drink yet. So, all right. So I said, we're coming on 5 minutes early because we've got a hard out at 11 o'clock. We've got to get ready for the final broadcast of the regular season for the twos. And we get to catch up with coaches and players. That's at 11 o'clock this morning offline. So, that's why we're starting at 9 o'clock and out at 11. So, sitting there, you're prepping everything, you're getting ready. Morning, Knicks. And all of a sudden, it's like 9 o'clock. And I'm like, ish. Kind of forgot that I was coming on at 9 o'clock. You're sitting there and you're doing all kinds of handiwork and everything, trying to get ready for the show. And all of a sudden, 9 o'clock shows up and you're like, oh, crap. So, finally poured my drink. And, hi, John here, you there. And we're going to get you ready for the weekend. We got scores from yesterday, news from this morning, and some of it is news that does not surprise. And so we'll get into that. Hopefully we can get visit from our friends at Beyond Goals Mentoring at 9:30 for the Friday Free Kick, and we'll talk about Julie Ertz. We'll talk about whatever comes to mind when it comes to the world of mentoring. And it's really cool that we can have these kinds of conversations to help out the next generation, anyone who's in their orbit when it comes to dealing with what's going on when it comes to being an athlete these days or being a student athlete and making sure that you can juggle one to the other. Okay, so Bam with the AFL update. And apparently, I think they're in the Final Four. Collingwood and GWS. See, now I should have watched FS2, and then I probably would have seen it, and I would know what Bam is talking about. And I'm going to have to go back at the end of the show. It'll around noon, and I'll sit there, and I'll look at the end of Collingwood and GWS and sit there and what's going on. Yes, guilty pleasure alert. It is the AFL as they're getting closer to the grand final. That's their version of the Super Bowl, and they have depending on the venue, anywhere from 80 to 100,000 folks just kind of hanging out for the last game of the year. And I will, if full disclosure, I guess this is opening kickoff. Opening kickoff brought to us by our friends at Kickoff Coffee, kickoffcoffeeco.com. There's your QR code for those of you who are watching on Twitch as I cover the other one. So we are in the Final Four. As I cover up the second hour QR code, that's our QR code from our friends at Kickoff Coffee and kickoffcoffeeco.com. Use the code soccer down here 15. You get 15% off your purchase, and they in turn take 10% reinvested into youth games, youth initiatives. Very, very cool stuff from our friends at Kickoff Coffee and kickoffcoffeeco.com. So there you go. Use that QR code, not that one over my left shoulder currently, for those of you who are watching on Facebook, Twitch, and Twitter, but the one that I just posted. Grand final, AFL's a guilty pleasure. And if for any reason you want to kind of go in that direction and just kind of listen to it, there's one network that I listen to almost exclusively. It's Triple M Radio. They're like the Odyssey of Australia. Stations everywhere. Most of them are in a rock format, and they take a very, very different approach to how they call a match. And they have fun, and they have 5 or 6 dudes who will call a match at any given time. And it's because the field is so big that what they do is they literally have 2 play-by-play guys. They have 2 sets of play-by-play guys and analysts in one booth because the field is so big and you have to account for so many players. So literally it's like the left-hand side, if you picture it in your mind's eye, left-hand side of the pitch is covered by one set of analysts. Right-hand side is covered by an entirely different set. So literally as the ball crosses the 50 or the midpoint, because they believe in 50 yards out. So when they say 50, that's 50 yards out from goal. They literally have 2 sets of play-by-play and color analysts, plus statisticians. So literally play-by-play and color on the left-hand side, play-by-play and color on the right-hand side. And they do that for TV too. And they are all in one booth. So they are literally right next to each other the entire time. You've got to have you have the 2 main play-by-play guys who are in the front row. Then you have the analysts behind them in the second row. statisticians between the color guys in the second row, and that's the row above them as they're sitting. So, I mean, it is something that probably took a while to perfect, but for something that is as chaotic and as large a scope as the game is, literally 2 play-by-play guys, 2 color guys, cut the field in half. The second it crosses over the midpoint of the field, the other set takes over. And it takes a little while to get adjusted to that kind of stuff. But morning, Ricky. But yeah, so it's an acquired listen. And, like I said, I got turned into a junkie when ESPN would show it like late night. Now it's on the FS networks. And so FS2 apparently had a very good one this morning. Collingwood and GWS. Collingwood, prohibitive favorite in the league, top of the table the entire season. And so they've advanced. They got past GWS. And so we'll find out what the grand final is coming up in just a little bit. 18 and a half hours. So like overnight our time. All right. So getting you ready for your Friday. That's opening kickoff. Brought to us by our friends at Kickoff Coffee. Go watch the grand final. That's your opening kickoff. Brought to us by our friends at Kickoff Coffee. KickoffCoffeeCO.com. That's your QR code for those of you who are watching on Twitch, on Facebook, and on the Twitters, the 280-character app. And that QR code is there for you. I'm covering up the second hour QR code, so folks don't click on one and think you're getting one when you're getting the other. Don't forget to use the code SoccerDownHere15, 15% off your purchase. They, in turn, take 10% reinvested into youth initiatives. Very, very cool stuff from our friends at Kickoff Coffee and KickoffCoffeeCO.com. So here's your traffic. Obviously, like I said, second hour Weekend Whiparound will get you ready for all of Major League Soccer, and we will get you ready for Atlanta United taking on Montreal. So if you've got any thoughts coming in on that, you can post them now or post them as we get closer to hour number 2, and get you ready for what's going on. Although in hour number 2, you will hear Adrian Heath cuss. You will hear him cuss after what happened with the matchup against LAG as they get ready for their matchup. So if I forget to hit a button, let me know, and I'll hit the button. And you get to hear Adrian Heath cuss about what's going on in Minnesota. Yesterday, bunch of stuff, a lot of scores. Yesterday is the day when the true individual who can't keep their head on a swivel is trying to keep their head on a swivel, because it's Europa League and Europa Conference League. And then you have those teams in the Premier League that are dealing with that, and then they have to come back and they have the quick turn and get back into league play. But yeah, yesterday was Europa League, Europa Conference League. So running down what happened there, it was a group stage once again, kicks back in on the 5th of October. And so Ajax and Marseille. Marseille is in chaos. We talked about just how bad things are right now at Marseille. Marseille was down 2-0 to Ajax in a hurry, and this was at Ajax. And they came back to tie it at 2, ends up a 3-3 draw. Atalanta won yesterday. AEK Athens and Brighton. For those of you that forgot, that's where Matias Almeida is, AEK Athens. And he's got Orbelin Pineda as a part of his offense. And so think of Almeida in Greece. And they went to Brighton and beat Brighton yesterday. And so now Roberto De Zerbi's got to come off of that chaos and get back into the Premier League. It's going to be a challenge for him. AEK, by the way, was a plus 1078 to win yesterday. Matias Almeida got a 3-2 win. Freiburg won late, winning 3-2 at Olympiacos. Rangers beat Betis. All you have to do probably is just mention Joe Hart to Jarrett, and he starts to get some kind of a conniption. Sparta Prague yesterday beat Aris Limassol. Limassol they had a 1-0 lead. Sporting won. West Ham beat TSC. Interesting story about TSC, and if you do not know, I want to get the wording correct. So the opponent for West Ham, and this is from Nick Ames at The Guardian, one of several clubs outside Hungary benefiting from Hungarian assistance. 2018, Viktor Orban attends the opening ceremony of a rural town's new football academy. Hungary's prime minister has long pumped, and this is Nick Ames' wording, long pumped vast amounts of money into his favorite sport, modernizing infrastructure, while other elements of the government's activities regressed deeper into authoritarianism. He was present to see the fruits of another project. Orban watched a tournament between under-14s at the €9.5 million facility, staying long enough to hand the winners their trophy. The twist, Orban was in northern Serbia. He was visiting Bacla Topola, the small town in northern Serbia nearly 30 miles from the border with Hungary, to show his backing for TSC Bacla Topola. The surrounding region, Vojvodina, contains nearly 185,000 ethnic Hungarians, and many are eligible to apply for citizenship voting in the country's elections. At last count, they made up 58% of the club's surrounding municipality. TSC had recently been promoted to Serbia's second tier at the time of Orban's ribbon cutting. Last season, they broke up the near-permanent duopoly, and this is how Nick Games phrased it, of Belgrade Giants Red Star and Partizan, finishing second in the Super League. And after 7 games there at the top of the table, they faced West Ham, kicking off the group stage that would have been unthinkable at most points in their 110-year history. TSC's president, Janos Zemberi, admits the Hungarian government assisted us, and we have their support because of the Hungarian community living here and nearby, but we are a Serbian club. Started back in 2013. So basically, you have a club in Serbia, 30 miles inside the Serbian border, getting financial benefits from the Hungarian president. Welcome to soccer. Not a surprise, but yeah, the required reading of the day from our friends at The Guardian comes from that idea. So you've got presidents from other countries helping out teams. Now they're in Europa League, and they had their first round yesterday. It was a bit of a rough slog for them, losing 3-1 at West Ham. The return fixture should be interesting. Bayer Leverkusen, no problems, 1-4. Liverpool and Lutsk. George Bello came in as a sub in the 88th minute for Lutsk in the 3-1 loss. Panathinaikos winner, Karabag winner at a plus 134. I don't know, to be honest, if they had that Karabag match actually in Karabag, considering all of the fighting that's going on right now. Rennes, a winner over Maccabi Haifa. Royal Union and Toulouse, a draw. Slavia Prague had a 2-0 win, and our friends over at Sheriff gave up a late goal, and lost 2-1. So that was Europa League yesterday. Then we'll go down another step, Europa Conference League. Their group stage is again on the 5th. Bruges and Besiktas draw. Dinamo Zagreb had 5 on Astana on the road. Lugano Bodo Glimt a draw. Maccabi Tel Aviv 3-2 over our friends at Breidablik, who are a plus 1,400. Victoria Pilsen 1-0 over somebody called FC Balkani. Slovan Bratislava 2-1 winners over our friends in the Faroe Islands, Klaksvik. Zorya Luhansk drew with Ghent. Eintracht Frankfurt a 2-1 win over Aberdeen. Dante Polvara scored for Aberdeen to draw them even. Eintracht Frankfurt would get a goal late. Fenerbahce winner, Ferencvaros winner. Genk and Fiorentina drew. PAOK Salonika over HJK on the road. Legia Warsaw beat Aston Villa at home at a plus 483. Ludogorets Razgrad beat Trnava at a minus 204. And Zrinjski beat AZ Alkmaar, Jordi Mihailovic's club, at a plus 480-4-3. So the chaos of really obscure leagues in Europa and Europa Conference League, that was what went down yesterday, with some American involvement and some involvement that was tied close to those of us here in the Atlanta area. So Julian Nagelsmann's probably the biggest news of the morning. Nagelsmann has been named as the head coach of the German national team through the Euro. And so that came out this morning. So, finally, one of the worst kept secrets that was there was absolutely there. And Greg Garza will be hopping on with us this morning with our friends at Beyond Goals Mentoring. So Germany has appointed Nagelsmann. This comes from our friends at The Score. Through the Euro 2024, our friends at the AP. AP says, entrusting the former Bayern Munich coach with doing a better job than the last Bayern Munich coach who tried. German Soccer Federation said Nagelsmann was taking over on a short-term contract through next year's Euros. Germany's hosting the tourney. Nagelsmann said, quote, we have a European championship in our own country. This is something special, something that only happens every few decades. Having a great tournament in a great country is the priority. I'm very keen to take on this challenge. We will be a close-knit bunch next year. Youngest Germany coach since 34-year-old Otto Ners was appointed in 1926. Nagelsmann succeeded Hansi Flick after the 4-1 loss to Japan when Flick was dismissed September 10. Team's losing run was 3, winless run at 5. Nagelsmann previously took over for Flick when he became Bayern coach back in 21, fired back in March. Germany next has friendlies against the U.S. in East Hartford on October 14, then Mexico in Philadelphia 4 days later. Get your tickets now. Team will continue their Euro 2024 preps against Austria in Vienna on November 21st. So, Julian Nagelsmann is now in charge of the German national team, at least through the Euros. So you've got that to keep an eye on. Martin Odegaard signed a new 5-year deal with Arsenal. He said it was an easy decision to make. Now he's in line through 2028. But remember, club option to stay another 12 months. This is just as much about controlling the asset as it is anything else. Would they love to have Martin Odegaard there for the 5 years? You bet. If Martin Odegaard blows it up and then decides that he wants to get closer to home or that he wants a different kind of a challenge, you have the asset under control for the next handful of years. 27 goals, 15 assists, and 112 appearances. Quote, signing a new contract was a really easy decision for me for lots of reasons. Mainly what we're doing right now as a club is special, and I want to be a part of that. Really excited for what's to come here. Found a place where I can really be settled and call my home. Story's a bit different maybe as I moved around different clubs since I was 16 at Arsenal. Since the first day, I felt great, and this is definitely my home now. So Martin Odegaard is locked in for another handful of years. So we'll keep an eye on that over the next handful of years and see what's going on there. Also, let's see what's going on this morning. It looks like Spurs have triggered a clause with Heung-min Son to keep him around so they don't have the same thing happen with him that happened with Harry Kane. So we'll keep an eye on that. According to our friends at Sky, Manchester United players remain upset at the David De Gea exit amid Andre Onana struggles. On Prem and Proper that will come out later today, our friends at the football show discussed Andre Onana and his save percentage, which is like .654. One of the lowest out of the blocks for a Manchester United keeper in recent memory. And this is once again, according to the 3-letter paper, so take the information at your own peril. Manchester United stars are still seething at the way dumped keeper David De Gea was treated. De Gea still searching for a new club after leaving on a free once United failed to take up their option of extending his deal by 12 months. The replacement, Onana, under the spotlight after some unconvincing performances, notably at Bayern Munich on Wednesday. United slumped to their 3rd straight defeat on their Champions League return. So, okay. So very, very interesting there. The Telegraph were the ones that said that Spurs triggered the option on the Heung-min Son contract. Scheduled to expire at the end of next season, club hold an option to extend it by at least a further year. It means that Son is effectively committed to Spurs until 2026 at the earliest, although the option has not yet been triggered. Expectation and intention of both the club and the South Korean is that it will be. So Youngman's Son is going to stay. Other stuff out of the Premier League. This should not surprise, and once again, this is out of the 4-letter paper, so take the information at your own peril. We'll go through gossip, rumor, and innuendo in just a little bit. Sean Dyche is set to benefit from 777 Partners' protracted attempts to buy Everton, as the club are unlikely to have the funds to sack their manager until a takeover is completed. With owner Farhad Moshiri unwilling to inject any more money, Everton are relying on loans from 777 and MSP Sports Capital to meet their monthly running costs, which may not extend to a managerial payoff. Dyche is under pressure after Everton have taken just 1 point from their opening 5 matches ahead of Saturday's trip to Brentford, but is protected by a clause in his contract entitling him to be paid until the end of the season if he is dismissed, which would cost the club around £4 million. So you can't win for, well, if you're Sean Dyche, you can win for losing, but if you're Everton, you can't win for losing. Xavi set to sign a new 2-year deal with Barcelona, according to Fabrizio Romano. Contract currently expires at the end of the season, now going to run for an extra 12 months. Set to confirm Xavi's new deal until June of 25. Official statement coming soon. Our friends at the papers, once again, as we avoid the 3 and the 4-letter, Daily Mirror says Manchester United are ready to sell Jadon Sancho to the highest bidder in January after Eric Ten Hag decided to cut his losses. Morning forecard, and yes, Tom Dyche out, Potter in, but apparently you might not be able to afford Graham Potter because Sean Dyche has to get paid in full. Moshiri's not putting in any more money. They're relying on loans from MSP and 777 to pay their bills. Apparently, Sean Dyche, if he gets sacked, he gets paid in full. So then my question for you, Tom, and for Ropes, and for any other Evertonian out there, Wayne Rooney or Graham Potter? Wayne Rooney, we know he is upset with the current state of affairs at DC United because he wanted to bring in Ravel Morrison. He wanted to bring in another couple of players. He wanted to pay him, but because of the roster machinations that we currently have, and we talk about a lot here in Major League Soccer, he couldn't do it, and he's chapped. What about hiring Wayne Rooney? Wayne Rooney comes back to Everton. And you would end up with an individual who knows what it's like to deal with financial constraints, considering what he had to put up with at Derby County. Graham Potter, yes, with his time at Swansea, understood that. With his time at Brighton, understood it. But I think that with what Rooney got at Derby is a different level. So Wayne Rooney or Graham Potter, if you could afford both, one or the other, which one would you pick? Not 100% convinced he's ready yet, but you wouldn't hate it. Steven Gerrard has admitted, according to the Mirror, he would have stayed at Liverpool had he known Jurgen Klopp was on the way, avoiding the 3-letter paper and the 4-letter paper. Express, Chelsea are reportedly waiting to learn whether they can proceed with plans to redevelop Stamford Bridge after making an offer to purchase a plot of land situated next to the stadium. Athletic, Crystal Palace expected to open initial talks with Eberici Eze over a new deal. Stuart Dallas returned to Leeds training Thursday after almost 18 months out with a serious knee injury. Premier League's crackdown on time wasting this season has stretched the playing time of the average match by almost 12 minutes, resulting in more action, more cards, and more goals. Don't know if you heard this yesterday. FIFA's at the center of tensions with the Kroenke family, the owners of SoFi Stadium, over the terms of an agreement to be a host venue of the 2026 Men's World Cup. In the old days before media as immediate as it was, these talks were just kind of behind the scenes. Now you get this kind of stuff out front. FIFA is in charge of the whole thing. I imagine it probably goes something like this. Johnny Infantino walks up to Stan Kroenke and goes, we'd really like to have SoFi as a venue. We're going to control everything. Stan Kroenke basically goes, I think that's what this is. So you'll get a negotiation, you'll get an agreement, something will happen. FIFA will not be in charge of all of the money at SoFi. I mean, Johnny Infantino, remember, he spent time at Jerry World last week, got booed by Dallas Cowboys fans. I imagine the same kind of conversations are going to be had, if they have not already, with Jerry Jones. And the same conversation probably went like this. FIFA comes in. Jerry, we'd really like to have the World Cup final here. We're going to control all the money that's attached. Jerry Jones, son, this is Texas. These talks traditionally are just behind closed doors. Now that with the Athletic, you get to kind of see how things are going. This is the first step. It's just talk. It'll get figured out. FIFA will not get all the money. Forecard, I don't know. But the media center and increase capacity temporarily to get the final here. I don't know if you could increase capacity to get the final. I think you get a semi. Because there really isn't any other room to expand MBS from its current form. I mean, you get standing room on a couple of levels, and you might get it to what, 74, 75 with standing room. Don't quite think that you would get to like an 80. So I think that you would end up with SoFi, Jerry World, the Meadowlands would be the ones that you're staring at. I think that would be what you're looking at when it comes to all of those. Nick Alifi coming in just before Garza. So what's on your mind, my friend?
I don't know. The show's live, man. I try to be here if I can.
Woo!
Woo! Bang bang!
Yeah, we were talking about what's going on currently with FIFA.
Yes.
And where they are apparently trying to have discussions with our friends at SoFi about the World Cup, about having a World Cup venue there. And I imagined that it was something along the lines of Johnny Infantino talking to Stan Kroenke going, yo, we're FIFA, we're going to control all the revenue. And Stan Kroenke was like, it's just we're finally getting these conversations out in the open now.
Just do it at the Coliseum. I wouldn't even negotiate with Kroenke. I would just say, yep, no problem. We appreciate the conversation, Mr. Kroenke, and we're going to take it down to the Coliseum. We're going to put on a big spectacle, and your venue will be just something that appears in wide shots. When we fly the blimps or the helicopters or the drones by, it's going to be sitting empty. And so if you would like to have your venue be part of a historic event, amazing. If not, then here's a horse you can go ride on and have a great afternoon.
What about Dallas?
Dallas, you got to deal with Jerry. You got to negotiate with Jerry because it's Jerry World. I mean, here's the thing. There's a ton of there are venues in California for you to deal with, right? Like to have to work around. Dallas is Jerry, and it reminds me of the scene in Casino, right? For those who have not seen the amazing movie Casino, please just upgrade your lives and go watch that movie. But at one point, Robert De Niro's character, who is running this casino in Vegas, runs into this yokel local commissioner, this like gaming commissioner, and essentially De Niro has to hire this guy's idiot nephew, and the idiot nephew is on duty when this big cash run occurs, and De Niro fires him. And so the commissioner comes in and says, man, you got to give me give him one more chance. And De Niro's like, nope, not doing it. And the commissioner says, you have no idea how things work out here. And to me, that is what negotiating with Jerry is going to be like. Gianni's going to come in and probably think he's dealing with some yokel local, and you're actually talking to the kingmaker of North Texas. So you got to deal with Jerry. You have to. Whatever Jerry wants, you give him and you move on. But Kroenke, it's a magical game of leverage. You have the Coliseum right down the road. I'm sure USC and the city of Los Angeles would have no problems putting on an event there. and call it good. I mean, just Cronky and his super villain hairpiece and his stenciled mustache can go take a hike, go kick rocks, baby.
And Bam says it is next to BMO for teams to train in.
I'm just saying there are options. There are endless, and that's where it's leverage. Any negotiation, you can think that you have all of the power in a negotiation, but you have to do some basic research. And for people who are coming into Los Angeles for the World Cup, would it be nice to have SoFi up and ready to go? Yeah, it would. State-of-the-art stadium, beautiful covering. You avoid some of the blowback that you had in '94, where you had the people baking in the Coliseum, but they're still going to show up. If you say, "Hey, look, we're putting on Brazil and Germany at the Coliseum," it's gonna be packed. They'll be sweating, but they're gonna be out there, and you have plenty of time to do any sort of updates or upgrades to the Coliseum if you want. And Kroenke doesn't, and it's leverage. If you don't have leverage and you don't do a proper, competitive analysis, you aren't going to win. And so Kroenke needs to understand what the leverage is here for FIFA.
And Ricky says they're not going to, though.
No, they're not. They're not going to.
Bam, to the point, they went from 16 groups of 3 to 12 groups of 4, and they could cut 4 stadia. I don't know if that's necessarily going to happen, but we'll see what happens. Oh, and speaking of happening, so Greg Garza, he sends a note like he always does. It's like Greg sends a note or Michael sends a note, and it's like, yes, I'm going to be the one that's on. So it's like, okay. And Greg, he's very, very punctual. Greg says, I'm coming on, but I'm going to be a couple minutes late. This is a couple minutes. Literally, it is 3 minutes late. Yeah, I'm going to be on, but I'm going to be a couple minutes late. So it'll be once I find the open, then we can get ready for everything here with the Friday free kick. And I found the open, so here we go. Three minutes, Greg Garza.
Morning,
my friend.
how's everything going? Hey, at least I sent a message. I was
You did.
I was caught in traffic on the 285. So
well, I mean, and we all know about Atlanta traffic being an ish show 9 days a week. So
and now with U.S. soccer being here, it's probably going to be worse.
Yes,
more jobs that are coming.
Well, what do you think about the A being the head of U.S. soccer now?
I love it because I think it hopefully creates some opportunities for Beyond Goals mentoring to be involved. I went through whenever I saw that, the first thing I did was call Parkey and say, dude, you played in the Olympics. You represented the U.S. men's team a lot of times. I am probably one of the very few kids that did every single camp from under 14s from the age of 12 all the way up until the full team. So there's only like maybe there's got to be less than 10 kids that have ever done that. I guess I am their exemplary player that goes through the whole entire process from the age of 12, the very first camp that we ever had in Boston. So that's pretty cool. So I was like, once that happened, when I heard that, I was like, Parkey, dude, this is us, man. They couldn't say no to us, right? So hopefully it'll all work out.
When you have the representation of a country, I mean, it is an entirely different responsibility, and I want to get into Julie Ertz here in a little bit, but it is a different set of responsibility, and I would think that it is a different set of emotional and athletic attachment to want to represent your country and be in that kind of a position?
Yeah, most people ask me what's the highlight of my career, and everybody from Atlanta always wants me to say the 2018 MLS Cup. But honestly, that's not the highlight of my career. The highlight of my career is be able to walk out and represent my country. I got to represent my country in every single age group. So that's something pretty special to be playing against, being 14 years old, playing against Mexico, or being, 15 years old, playing against Brazil, or being 17 years old, playing against Germany and Belgium and all these guys. And just goes down the list of so many countries I got to play against, but the representation of what it means to be an American and represent, so many people out there. That's my biggest pride and joy of my whole entire career. And I think like the moment playing against Czech Republic, my very first debut game, like coming on as a sub and kind of debuting in that game was like, just remember standing on the sideline and just looking back, just kind of having like flashes of just the whole entire process. From going to residency. I used to be in a residency program, which we had down in Bradenton. We used IMG as our campus. It was the top 40 players in all of the United States that live together. And kids these days, they don't have that. They have the the academy that they can be in, but they have these U.S. youth ID camps, which are great, but they're done in regions. But that's also an honor to be. But I think back in my time, and I'm like, man, that's to be living with each other, with your brothers, and representing your country. But it's 40 kids out of the whole entire country living together for 2.5 years, preparing for a special World Cup. And I got to go through that. I mean, I believe Landon Donovan was the very first age group that did that. And to still look back at that and be like, those were the best developmental years of my life. Those were the best developmental years to where I understood what it was to be a pro. That was the first mental coach that I ever had within that program. So I owe a lot to U.S. Soccer. They provided me with the opportunities to follow my dream and open doors to many different things within my career.
Nick Alifi for Greg Garza on a Friday Free Kick.
Yeah, if I can get my mute button to actually function right, that'd be just huge. So, Greg, I think you bring up a great point with the Bradenton and how Bradenton was set up, where it's this tremendous like esprit de corps, and you have this very, I'm not, because I was in the Marines, right? So I know firsthand, like when you are working with a group of people day in and day out, you have to treat people differently, because there may be people you don't like, but you have to work with them, right? Because in that you're, like you said, you're 40 people and you have to be all together training, maximum development opportunities. Is that something that you think could work today, even with the academy setup? Is that something that you think could still work and benefit today?
In today's world, I think you're looking more towards base like a European, right? The European, the South American, the rest of the world setup, where all of these kids are at a club. They're at their clubs, and they're able to meet every few months and have their games, and kind of what we call it in Spanish and also Portuguese, but you call it concentration camps, which is kind of weird. I don't know why they call it that, but they call them concentration camps, to where these kids are, being put into an environment every few months, being together, kind of building those relationships, building those bonds. But there was a very special and unique process to what we had. You're going to school together. You are training together every single day. You're waking up. I remember those days of waking up at 5:45 every single morning as a 14-year-old and going to the gym, right? And that's where you have these 40 kids, to where the competitive environment is always there, because you have to break down those 40 kids into the top 23 to go to the World Cup and to go to qualifying. And so that competitiveness was maybe so much more. I honestly, and this is my honest assessment, is that I feel there are so many kids that take for granted where they are, whether they are at an Atlanta United Academy, where they are at Orlando, Minnesota, every single MLS academy. I think those kids, I think a lot of these kids, they take for granted of where they are. They take for granted because I think they've always been given. They've always been given, and they haven't been put into maybe what you're saying, Nick, is when I think back about what residency was, it was a very hostile environment, right? You have 40 kids living together every single day, grinding, and you see which ones truly want it more. I always tell my mentees that there was very few of us that after waking up at 5:45 in the morning, going to the gym, everybody together doing fitness, right after that, going to training, right after that, eating lunch within like 10 minutes, right after that, getting on the school bus, going to school for 4 hours because that's all we did. And then after school, there was maybe a handful of us that were, maybe 6 or 7 guys that would still get together. We would get a ball bag, we would walk to the fields, or we would go back to the gym every single day. And out of those 6 or 7 kids, there were maybe 4 of us or 5 of us that went pro. Now, those other 36 kids, I can't tell you they did anything. And so that's just that mindset that I think that, kids these days, their hunger is I think just a little different. And I think it goes back into that self-acceptance of making a highlight reel on Instagram, or having them being accepted of working hard and doing the extra so they can film themselves and posting it. If that makes sense, to where for us, it was this unique hunger of one thing and one thing only, is how much can we value from the amenities around us to make the most of it, to take one step further to becoming a pro.
I understand this, John, because I have a 14-year-old son who is a player, and that's the thing that I'm seeing across the board, right? Is that it's, you have kids with skill sets that I'm 43. I don't recall seeing any kids, that when I was younger that had the skill sets that I'm seeing today. But I am seeing a different drive, a different mentality, and maybe that's just it's just part of changing generations and things of that sort. But I do see what you're talking about, and I wonder if it's going forward from a national team perspective, from a professional perspective, how that's going to change the game in general. Because it's where before, if I'll use the Italian national team as an example, that's the team that I grew up following, and where the team is now compared to where the team was 10, 15, 20 years ago. It is like, it's not even the same universe that they were in. And so it's going to be interesting, I think, to see how that's going the international game and also the professional game for the next 5, 10, 15 years going forward.
Yeah, most definitely. John, you said you were going to say something.
Well, no, it's just, you mentioned the idea of taking things for granted, and all of this with this current generation. I mean, when you're with your mentees, how do you impress that message without using those words? Or do you use those words that you're taking something like this for granted? Is that too harsh an assessment to give when it comes to being a mentee? How blunt can you be in trying to alert a mentee what's going on? How blunt as a mentor can you be to give the message that you want to give?
I think it depends on levels, right? It depends on levels of where you are. You can take the academy, for example. I think with them, we can be very blunt and honest of what they have in front of them, because these are kids that are investments, right? They're investments. Little do they know, right? And I think that's sometimes that they don't realize, where I think about my youth, and I think about going through the Sao Paulo ranks, or getting to Sporting Lisbon, and just thinking about these kids already knew that they were investments. They knew that they had a lot of time and money invested in them to be living on campus, or to be, provided food every single day, or, and I think within the world that we live in today, I think a lot of kids automatically think that that's something that is just always going to be provided. And I think when Mike and I talk about just the location and the opportunities and the amenities and everything that these kids are provided, even within the academy, um, real life is not like that, right? You look at the opportunities that they're given, and you think, okay. And you and I have talked about this before. I always say I hold my kids to a high level of expectation, but I almost want them to suffer. I want them to go through some sort of suffering. And I mean, Nick, you could probably speak this if you're training with the Marines, and to find your threshold, to find what you can take and how far you can take it. Now that's such a fine line, I think, these days to teach with kids, because I've seen it even with my own son. There's sometimes so much suffering or self-acceptance that they have to go through, to where it can just absolutely crush everything that goes through their mind. So I think, going back to what you said, John, it's all about levels of understanding the type of conversations that you can have. Because I do think this new generation of young kids is more of a buildup rather than a beat down. And for maybe myself, or even you guys, when you were kids, it was more about getting beat down
Yeah.
to see how quickly you could pick yourself up. And I honestly just don't think that we are in a generation of that anymore. And, maybe we have swung we swung maybe a little bit too far on the other side of things. Everything is build me up, to where it's really hard sometimes, to when those kids do see failure or see suffering or go through an obstacle or a hurdle that they have to get over, because they are so used to being built up. And you're right. It's just a generational thing. And I hope there can be a medium and a median kind of to kind of be within the next few years. But that's where I think that mentorship does come in. It is important to learn from people's experiences. It is important to really listen and take it all in of what others go through. The only reason I think I was able to surpass certain levels or moments within my career is because I had seen others go through them, or I had taken example of my mentors or my people that I had in my corner of helping me understand those things. And that's much needed in today's world.
Nick, go for it.
Yeah, and at Paris Island, it was we're gonna strip you down to ground zero and rebuild you back up. And I was like 5'5" and 100 and maybe 10 pounds soaking wet. And for me, I think nowadays it's gonna be more about proof, right? We're gonna prove to you that you have more in you than you think you do, right? Like when it comes to that effort, when it comes to the ability to you think you're tired, but you have another gear or two in you that you can push, and you can be so much better. Just let us prove it to you. We're not going to have to tear you down necessarily, because I agree with you that I don't think this generation is a group that you can take down to ground zero and rebuild. I think that it is more about showcasing that with extraordinary effort, there's an opportunity to have extraordinary results. That doesn't guarantee you those results, but it means there's an opportunity to achieve extraordinary results. And if you don't try to put in that extraordinary effort, we can pretty much guarantee you're not going to get the extraordinary result. But it's tough to prove that, I think, to kids these days. That's why I love what you guys are doing, Greg. When you're talking about the mentorship and providing opportunities for kids to come in and to learn firsthand from champions. My son, he'll get on Instagram and he sees like these little clips of Kobe talking about like all these kids were going to get shoes if everybody ran, the touchline to touchline, and one kid missed by a half inch because he was trying to shortchange, and none of the kids got shoes. And that kid forever is like, no, I'm putting in maximum effort from here out. Or, we watched The Last Dance and he sees, what a psycho Jordan was when it came to training and preparation and mentality. And he, it's one thing to watch those clips but there's still that distance that occurs because it's a television screen or a phone screen. It's different when you have a human being sitting in front of you who's been a champion, who's reached the highest levels and can sit there and bring that sort of wisdom to you. And I think that's what's great about what you and Parky are doing with your mentorship program.
Oh, thank you. I appreciate that. Thank you.
When did, Greg, do you think kids turn into investments as opposed to son, daughter, friend, student athlete that has a future? When do you think we flipped from someone with a future to an investment? Because I think those are two different things. When do you think that changed?
Yeah, well, I wish I could make my 6-year-old already an NIL player. I'll try and reach out to some agents here pretty soon. The kid is something else. No, I'm just kidding. Look, I think it's when you realize there is an opportunity to take something as far as you can go, and that's what I tell every kid, right? You want to dream big, have big dreams. Dreams are a part of life. They are a part of what we live for. They give us that motivation. They give us that inner and self, drive that we have, the desire, the fire that burns inside of us. That's what dreams give. But when you come down to the reality of things, just how far can you take something, right? How far can you take something? And that's what I tell every single mentee that I work with is, dream of being that player on TV, because you never know when dreams can come true. You never know. But in the meantime, how far can this sport take you? How far can this sport take you in regards to maybe using it to get a free education, maybe using it to be one step ahead from the average person, right? Or the average Joe. And I think that's an important thing for kids to start understanding when they do get in their teen years, is to, okay, how far can I take this? And if there is an opportunity, at least I've made myself ready for it. So in regards to being an investment, I think it's more so of these kids that are at the pinnacle and at an elite level to where everything is given to them, right? And so I think that's where the academies are that's where these kids are being investments. I went through the residency program in Bradenton. I was an investment. Out of those 40 kids, I'm being provided food every single day. I'm being provided free schooling. I'm being provided free fields, free everything, free clothes, free gear, free cleats. I bought my first pair of cleats the other day to play pickup with my friends, and it had been more than 18 years since I had bought a pair of cleats. And so I look back at that and I say, wow, that's, a pair of cleats. I probably had over 1,000 cleats in my career, right? Or, close to hundreds and hundreds of pair of cleats. And I didn't pay a dime for one of them. And that just shows, okay, well, I was considered an investment to these brands or to these organizations. And that's where I think that maturity level of understanding that for me was massive. Like that pride of understanding, okay, I'm 13 years old and I'm getting all this free stuff. Like I'm going to make their time worthwhile. I'm going to make sure they know that, I'm not going to take this moment for granted. I'm going to make sure they know that I'm going to give it absolutely everything that I can to make sure that their investment is something that can hopefully turn out to be something that's worthwhile to them.
Nick, go for it.
So when it comes to preparation for the mentees, right? When you're preparing one of your sessions, can you talk a little bit about that process? Because I imagine every session is a bit different. I imagine every one of your mentees is a bit different. can you talk to us a little bit, because as somebody who is in your wheelhouse, right, as a dad with a teenage son who is always talking about, I want to do this, I want to do that, like you talked about those big dreams. How would an interaction go between me and you if I were interested in sending my son to your program?
Yeah, every conversation is very custom tailored, right? It's like uh, the one thing for us as mentors is that we have we learn with these mentees, and every mentee and every player, every individual thinks about themselves, they think of themselves um, so differently than everybody else. The one main thing that I always look for within every kid and how to kind of gauge the initial conversation is what they think about themselves initially. How do they view themselves in the mirror? And that's something that's a huge gauge for me to how to tailor the conversation, how to give personal experiences. But having a very honest assessment of, okay, what does this kid not only think of themselves, how do they think on the field, what frustrates them, how do they view, and how do they cope with pressure, what do they view leadership as, have they dealt with adverse moments, and how have they gone through them, how have they persevered, what obstacles have they gone through. And every kid at every single in different phases and ages of their lives have all been through all those different things. They've all struggled with confidence at one point. They've all had moments of whether good leadership or bad leadership. They've all had moments of adversity. They've lost games, or they've been the reason of losing a game. And so it's interesting for us. The most interesting part for us is to see what their reaction has been to all of those. And I think that's where I think for most kids, I believe that most kids will say the first question that we always ask them is what do you feel the game is today, more mental or physical? Most kids will say the mental game is more important, but what is their character like? What are their personality traits? What are their strengths that they have within the mental side of the game? And I think for Mike and I, we always say, look, we're no psychologists. I'm not a psychologist. I didn't do psych at all in school. But that's where I think where you mentioned, Nick, is that experience, that personal knowledge and wisdom within the game, and being in their shoes at one point is extremely important. And I think with every single parent, one of our biggest points is, look, I have 3 kids of my own. My oldest is extremely talented, but if I say one thing, it goes through one ear and it goes right out of the other. And I will always be dad. I will never be the guy who won trophies or who represented my country at every single age group. I will not be that guy, because dad, you know nothing. And sometimes my son hearing someone else speak, or maybe in your case, your son watching Kobe or watching Michael Jordan, you might give an example of those things, and I guarantee you it's probably gone through one ear and right out of the other. But when he watches that on TV, or when he sees somebody else speak, it hits them differently, and it just has that much more of an impact. So, I think all in all, our mentorship program it's a big brother companionship. It's just being a big brother. It's helping them understand each and every phase and building leaders of tomorrow, right? And whatever they do, and however far they're able to take soccer. Mike and I know that we were not the best on every team, but we were great pros, and we were great people, and we made good decisions, and we made decisions that would always help us rather than hurt us. And I think for kids, we want them they're going to go through certain phases and certain journeys within their lives to where they have to understand, whether it's in soccer or whether it's in the corporate world or whether it's being an entrepreneur or whatever it is. We want them to always make the best decisions that they can for themselves. And that's kind of like our pitch to every parent, and in helping them understand the value of mentorship. I was very blessed and grateful to have so many positive role models within my career and within my youth life, that those lessons I will forever use in anything that I do to try and be as successful as I can be. One major question that I always ask kids, and it's crazy to see this answer. Every answer I've always gotten the same, and I always ask kids, what are the two most valuable things that you can have in your life? And every kid will start by saying success and being happy. And, I love that kids feel that. I love that kids feel the aspiration to be successful and they have the drive, but every kid uses that. And I feel like in my world, I always tell them, well, I don't agree with you. I think the two things to feel in life are to feel loved and to feel happy. Right. And when you have those two things, you're more likely to have and hopefully grow your success. But everybody wants to be happy, man. And everybody, we all want to feel loved, man. We have our parents, we have people around us, we have people in our corner, and nobody wants to be successful, but have nobody around them. You need the right people in your corner to also go through those successful moments and even those dark moments as well. So that's pretty much the basis of everything that we do and what we kind of encompass. And we have a passion for it. And we love what we do, helping kids understand not only the game much better, but also hopefully life.
I'll say that it's very validating to hear that you have the same challenges as every other dad, where it's like, yeah, hey man, I've won trophies. I've represented my country. Yeah, sure, Dad. Okay, great. And my son asked me one time, he's like, Dad, what about free kicks or corners? And I'm trying to say, well, you just got to just repetition, man. Just do it over and over again until, you're going to figure out your best motion and, the amount of weight to put under the ball. And he's like, yeah, sure. And so we go to a Dick's Sporting Events where Atlanta United had players, and he meets Kevin Kratz. And so he asked Kevin Kratz the same question. And Kevin says, I take about 27 free kicks. And if I miss one, I do 27 more. And the next day, my son's like, we got to go. We got to go to the field, Dad. I got to do like 27 free kicks. But you're right. The right person with the right advice makes all the difference, right? I mean, it's crazy how that works. And kids, man.
But before I head out, this will be the last thing I say, because I heard this on this is an Atlantean entrepreneur that I heard the other day speak on some Instagram motivational video. That's all that pops up on my explorers and my thread. But this was he said it was the 100-hour rule. Do you guys know that, the 100-hour rule?
No.
The 100-hour rule is that if you do something, if you want to get, find an expertise in something, and let's say you play the guitar for 18 minutes a day for one full year. That's all you need is 18 minutes a day. You'll hit 100 hours. And you will be better than 95% of everybody else who has ever tried or plays a guitar. If you play 18 minutes a day to hit that 100-hour by one full year. And so you look at it and you think just everything, right? Going to the gym. If you go to the gym at least 18 minutes a day, you will be fitter than 95% of the whole entire world's population. Playing a guitar, play the piano. I tell kids all the time, juggle for 18 minutes, man. Juggle for 18 minutes a day. 18 minutes flies by, and you will be a better juggler by the end of the year if you do it every single day than 95% of those people around you. So, that just goes to show that it doesn't take much. It doesn't take much to do the little extra. So that's one you can use for your son, Nick, if you want to, man.
I appreciate it, and I absolutely will.
Awesome, man. Awesome. Thank you, guys.
Be good, Greg. Thanks again, our friends at BG Mentoring on the Twitters, and we will catch up with you in a couple of weeks. Thanks again.
Sounds good. Take care. See you guys.
All right. That's Greg Garza. And, we like Greg. We like Greg. We like Parky. And we like what we see with our friends at Beyond Goals Mentoring. Since we have cleared the top of the hour, it is time to discuss promos and promo reads, because that's how we kind of break things up here. So
guess what, John?
What?
There are times, because I have kids in this house, as we just discussed, especially with a young athletic son, that he brings stuff in this house that smells like a dying animal.
And it might even be a dying animal.
Yeah, his cleats smell like a dying animal. And so, John, I don't know what to do, and I don't know who to turn to when the dying animal cleats arrive at my house.
Well, here's an answer for your dying animal cleats. It's our friends at Eliminize Service. For odor-free, clean, fresh air, they can help you with your dying animal cleats and a bunch of other different things. Deodorizing enclosed spaces like houses, apartments, and condos, because when those dying animal cleats come inside, it is an enclosed space. So our friends at Eliminize can help you deodorize said space. They've created a customized solution that eliminizes all organic odors, including those like pets, cigarettes, and food. Realtors and property managers use Eliminize service to eliminate bad odors to help them sell or rent their homes that much faster. It's a turnkey process. Like I said, I don't know what that means. It sounds good. Makes it easy to work with realtors and property managers. We like working easily with others. Kind of the environment that I do know about. Offering a green way to get rid of odors without any kind of toxic residue whatsoever, different than Febreze or other masking agents that you may have under the sink or above you in the cupboard, because when you reach under the sink or above you in the cupboard, pull out that masking agent. You spray that masking agent in the air, there's a reason they call it a masking agent. You're just masking the odor. You're not attacking the problem like our friends at Eliminize do with their proven scientific formula. Deodorizing everything, destroying odor down to the molecule. Pricing very, very easy, either by the cubic foot or parts per million, to come up with a price that's affordable for you, offering results in 24 hours or less. Any questions that you may have, frequently asked or otherwise, one place you need to go, it's the website. This is where I grab my pen with authority. The website's eliminize.com, but here's your homework assignment. Go /Atlanta after the .com, so our friends at Eliminize know what part of the world that you are addressing them from, so they can help you with your issue. Full homework assignment. ELIMINIZE.com /Atlanta, Eliminize.com /Atlanta. Eliminize service for odor-free, clean, fresh air. Eliminize service, proud sponsors of everything SDH. To help you with your dead animal cleats.
I swear to God, that kid he's been playing American football for this past season, right? Doing kickoff. He's been doing like some special teams work, some kickoffs, field goals, punts, and occasionally trotted out at cornerback and wide receiver. But the amount of stank that comes with that gear.
Mm-hmm.
Look, I've been around some stink, okay? I mean, you do like a month in the field, only showering like twice.
Mm-hmm.
Brother, I know some stank.
Mm-hmm.
But man, that what this kid brought in the house, I'm like, my God, son, what have you done to this?
Mm-hmm.
He's like, I don't know, Dad. I'm just playing, man. What's going on? I'm like, hey, it smells like we're butchering goats in your recreational time, like in the middle of the heat.
And he may very well have been.
Breaking news on the SDH network.
Yep. Out of Cincinnati, FC Cincinnati has signed Luciano Acosta to a long-term contract extension.
Good for him.
Through 2026 with an option for 2027. All-time leader in both goals and assists. Release from the team, their own selves, quote from Chris Albright saying positive things. Acquired as a DP in March of 2021, 101 matches across all comps, 71 regular season goal contributions since the 2021 season, ranked second, 31 goals, 40 assists. And so that is where we are with Lucho Acosta now signing a contract extension with the FC Cincinnati. And so he going to be there a while, or at least the asset will be in control for a while. Let's phrase it that way.
Yeah, the contract, the thing of value is in place for a while.
So at 11:15, FC Cincinnati is going to have their own very, very authoritative press conference to discuss said element. But yeah, Lucho Acosta is going to be hanging around FC Cincinnati for a while. To your point, Hutch, Nick says, middle school locker room comes to mind when the issue of stank is raised.
Yes. Yeah, it's pretty crazy, man. It's pretty crazy how that works.
Stank.
Yes.
That is a special kind of stank. All right.
Yeah. Go ahead.
Time for Weekend Whiparound, by the way. It is time to go through all of the games and discuss what's going on, complete with official assignments and things like that. We're saving the Atlanta match for last.
Oh, God.
As we traditionally do. So what we're going to do is we're going to go and find where are my odds? My odds like disappeared on me all of a sudden. The juice boxes went away. All right, so here we go. Got to figure it out finally. And no, we don't know what's wrong with Nick's Echo scorecard. We're trying to diagnose it. We have no earthly idea.
Yeah, we've worked through it. like off hours, we've tried to diagnose what's happening here. We've gone through my audio settings, John's audio settings. I don't know. So I'm going to keep trying to hit mute as much as I can, and we'll jump in.
7:30s, and there are 5 of them. Like I said, we're saving Atlanta United and CF Montreal to the end. DC United and Red Bulls. DC is a plus 131 in your juice boxes. Your draw is a plus 237. Red Bulls are a plus 208 in this particular matchup. Alex Chilowitz is the man in the middle. Jason White, Gianni Facchini, and Joshua Encarnacion are your ARs and your fourth. Your VAR is Soren Stoichka. Your AVAR is Tyler Wyrostik. This one, Nick, means a lot to DC because they're hanging out right around the end of the playoff bar. So Red Bulls, and this was weird. It's like you after what happened in the midweek, Red Bulls are now next to last in the table. They are behind Messi and friends. They've only won 7 out of 29. So it is a battle of 9 versus 14. What say you?
As I unmute, I think that DC feels like they should have beaten Atlanta. Mm-hmm. And they feel a certain amount of venom naturally toward the red cows, the war of the cows. Mm-hmm. And one of the most popular cow breeds is the Jersey cow, right? Mm-hmm. So Red Bulls are based out of Jersey. I'm just saying that the Jersey cows. Mm-hmm. But I will say that I believe that DC will win this match against the Red Bulls. The question is how many times does Benteke extend the finger poke of doom into someone's face? That's the question that I have. The finger poke of doom is a little deep cut for all of you wrestling fans out there. So the finger poke of doom, the Benteke special, how often that happens, but DC's winning.
And they need to put more shots on target than they did in the last match. I think it was 19 shots and only 4 on target or some insane number like that.
But Atlanta has a better defense than the Red Bulls have, so that's not going to be a problem, I don't think, for those guys.
And Rich does make a point. As I'm sitting here staring off to my left, the monsoon conditions this Saturday, you're going to have massive wind and a lot of rain working its way up the eastern seaboard because of this possible tropical storm depression kind of thing. So keep in mind, anything along the eastern seaboard, take the under. Of course, I say that, and you could have a lot of places with absolutely sloppy field conditions and people falling down all over the place, and you could have some really stupid matches as well. So avoid the totals at your own, take the totals at your own peril. But right now, DC's favored at home, getting the early part of this tropical wind, PTC 16, as it is called here on the Weather Channel, currently off my left shoulder. Also at 7:30, which means a 7:39 kick. FC Cincinnati, big favorite at home against Charlotte at a minus 152. Your draw is a plus 309. Charlotte is a plus 380. Yeah. There ain't a whole lot to say about this one.
I beg to differ. Okay. I beg to differ. I think that Charlotte is pesky. They are a pesky. They're terrible and pesky. I'll put it that way.
Okay.
Cincinnati, I think, is going to have a bit more of a fight on their hands than they're probably planning for, and I think that's why Charlotte's pesky, because they're not good. So naturally, teams are like, the coach can say, we got to be up for this weekend. You never know, any given Saturday. Blah, blah. But the players are like, look, guys, let's just not get hurt and just run these guys off the field. I think it's going to be a bit of a tougher game. Cincinnati's going to win, but I'm not taking the over on it.
Okay. All right. I think since he's going to get the win, I think Lucho Acosta will celebrate his contract extension verily and put goals on the board, because I don't know where Charlotte's goals are going to come from. So that is also at 7:30. 7:30, NYC is hosting Toronto FC. And let's see at which particular stadium in the boroughs this one is going to be held at. This one's at, wow. Okay. NYC and Toronto's at Red Bull Arena. Sure, why not? By the way, this one's on the free side of Apple TV. But yeah, NYC and Toronto in the arena musical chairs of the Pigeons continues. This one's at Red Bull Arena. NYC's a minus 217. Your draw's a plus 362. Toronto FC in the composite, courtesy of our friends at Odds Portal's a plus 560. Holy ish. Arena number 3 in as many matches.
Well, I think that we need to rebrand NYCFC, and I mean this 100% sincerity. Call them the Five Boroughs FC. Just call them Five Boroughs FC, even though Red Bull Arena is not in one of the five boroughs. That's okay. But call them Five Boroughs FC. That way they
Tri-State FC.
You could, yeah, you could call yourself Empire City FC, right? Empire State FC. How about that?
Okay.
Even though New Jersey is not it would not be technically in the Empire State, but it's okay. They have to do a rebrand here. I until the stadium is built, they're apparently they have the Italian Planning Commission when it comes to stadium building. City's gonna roll. I see a 3-0 win for City.
Also at 7:30, Philadelphia hosting LAFC in a rematch of the end of the year from last season. Philly is a plus 120. Your draw's a plus 268, Rich Ransom, and LAFC visiting is a plus 204. I don't know what's up with LAFC, but they sound like they're down a cylinder on a super speedway, and it has not been looking good recently. Middle of the week, it was a goalless draw at all caps, St. Louis City SC, and now they have to go to Philly for an early game. And Rich is saying draw, so Rich is looking at that plus 269. What say you, Nick Alifi?
Philadelphia is going to win this game. I think the weather conditions are going to absolutely play a role in this. If this was being played on a perfect bowling pitch and bright sunny weather, I might say LAFC is able to get the draw even down a cylinder. But if you factor in weather and it's going to be an ugly game, and there is no team in MLS that is more qualified to play knife fight in a phone booth, quite like the Philadelphia Union. Mm-hmm. So they're going to get a couple of really, really stupid goals. And I think they're going to win 2-1.
Oh, fix your fantasy teams if you can, because I can't. And we'll get into that coming up with a matchup in a bit. 8:30, Fire and the Revs at Chicago. It's a plus 127 for Chicago. The Revs are a plus 198, and we'd like to welcome Tab Ramos to the staff as an assistant coach in the interim. Your draw's a plus 261. I got no read on this one. New England ain't scoring. Shooter's been yelling all week long. The Fire ain't that. So should I just say draw and walk away?
That's your official normal pick anyway.
Or the 2-1 win for Atlanta United.
I'm going to go. I think New England is going to get a very scrappy 1-0 win.
Okay.
And I think that's going to be. They'll probably say that this is proof that we've moved on and we're a successful team and franchise, and we don't need to make any substantial changes because we beat Chicago.
True.
Well, 1-0 win New England.
Rich has a very busy weekend. He has laid out his itinerary for us. He's got Union and LAFC, and 20 Union fans are going to the Union 2 finale at Red Bulls 2 at Montclair on Sunday. Yes. So, by the way, that is a 2:00 start since it's an Eastern Conference game. So get your travel done appropriately and dress for a monsoon, because I think it's going to be a monsoon at Montclair for the Eastern Conference games in MLS Next Pro. 2:00 for all of those. 1:45 pregame here on the SDH Network for Atlanta United 2 in Columbus against Crew 2. Crew 2 and Red Bulls 2. are chasing after the 3 and the 4 right now. They're tied at 51 points. And so Atlanta United 2 can be a bit of a spoiler. Union 2 need a win to get in and get some help because there's math. We'll get into it coming up in a little bit. But yes, Rich, dress for a monsoon the entire week and make sure that you have multiple rain clothes. Also at 8:30, FC Dallas hosting Crew. Dallas a plus 160. Your draws a plus 260, and Crew on the road are a plus 154. What say you, Nicolifi?
I'm going to take FC Dallas.
Okay.
I'm going to take. Look, Dallas is. They have the ability, I think, like very few teams in this league, to turn on the nitrous and just go. Remember, they were the first ones that really gave Inter Miami with full Messi powers a major problem, right? I mean, they ran Miami for about the first 65 minutes of that game.
They did. They ran out of gas.
And then they ran out of gas. But Columbus ain't Messi and friends. So they're very good, don't get me wrong, but they ain't Messi and friends. So I'm going to take FC Dallas, and this is going to be my drunk game of the weekend. I'm going to say it's going to be like a 4-3 final FC Dallas.
FC Dallas 7-3-4 at home this year. And Jared is now joining us. And we are in the 8:30 kicks, Jared. And the next one is a special one because we get to hear from the home coach here. Minnesota United and St. Louis City. Minnesota United had a bit of an adventure last time out, and it was a 4-3, 7-goal thriller at Dignity Health Sports Park against LAG. Teemu Pukki scores, or actually Billy Sharp scores. Teemu Pukki scores, it's 1-1. Longwane scores at 45 plus 5, it's 2-1. Billy Sharp scores 2 in a row to get the natural hat trick. 37-year-old Billy Sharp with the start. Natural hat trick. So it's 3-3, a red card to Bristow in the 74th. Diego Fagundes scores in the 82nd minute, and that would be your final as 10-man Minnesota loses at LAG. And the coach for Minnesota United, after the match was over, he was asked about the situation and about that particular result because it is not the first time that situation has happened for Minnesota United. The full press conference was 8.5 minutes. We're not going to play it. But here's what Adrian Heath was asked about giving up a lead. Here's the question and the answer, courtesy of Minnesota United, their own selves.
Adrian, given the result from tonight and now that you guys have fallen out of the playoff picture, if the season were to end today, do you hope this to be some sort of wake-up call now with a handful of games, knowing that you are outside looking in at the current moment?
Well, we just obviously, you can imagine what the dressing room's like. There's a lot of angry people in there, and a lot of people saying one or two things. And I don't think, we've been in this position before, but it's gone to the last game. I said weeks and weeks ago, I wasn't trying to be smart, or you just look at everybody's fixtures. We have 3 home games. Mm-hmm. If we win 2 or maybe even win 3, that would be more than enough to get us in the playoffs. So it's still in your own hands. There are enough points to play for, but we can't keep doing the same like we're doing at the minute and expect to get different results.
Adrian Heath, everybody. after losing, after getting a red, going down to 10 men, giving up goal number 4, losing 4-3, and Minnesota's at home hosting all caps. Minnesota, by the way, is favored at a minus 118. Your draw is a plus 293. St. Louis City is a plus 284. Jarrett, are you hammering all caps at a plus 284?
Not as hard maybe as I might have been previously. Okay. On the surface, yes. Part of me believes you'll get some sort of bounce back performance from Minnesota. Now, whether that's sustainable is an entirely different conversation. Minnesota's got some soul searching they got to do beyond this, but I mean that's an even bigger conversation because they've just been okay. But they never got over the hump in 2020 when they had the chance to go to MLS Cup. Didn't get over that hump. Then they came into 21 as, along with Columbus, one of those teams that we thought, oh, this team could be a problem. They're going to build on what they did last year. And then they just didn't. They've just kind of been floating along, which, look, and I'll defer to you, Nick. I mean, for me, that's almost as damning as anything, to be just kind of floating on in the middle and not ever really going for it. And they've made some move. They made a couple moves in this last window that were solid, but they've just have not been a team that feels like it's pushing super hard to be a top flight.
No, they feel like a team is completely exist, and that's part of the problem, especially with where you're located. You could be like a team in Los Angeles or Miami and just say, hey, we're okay existing for right now, because if you decide to dial it up, you're an attractive destination where you can get players, and that's no problem. You're not going to convince people to come to a mediocre team in Minnesota and have to play games in October and November and in March, right? No, you're not going to. You have to have some level of excitement to convince certain players to come there outside of just money. Or else you're going to start creating yourself a little money sink that you're just going to keep stuffing cash down and never get back. This team is mediocre in every sense of the word, and it starts with the man in charge. And he's a good quote. He's a good moment in front of the camera, in front of a microphone. But this team will be nothing but mediocre forever and always as long as that man's at the helm.
It seems like they like him.
Yeah.
I feel like you never hear anything about like a revolt against Adrian Heath. It seems like the players like him, which kind of makes it a tougher decision, I guess.
If anything, it makes it an easier decision for me, because if you're this mediocre and the players have nothing bad to say about the coach, that means that it's an environment where they feel comfortable. And if you're mediocre and everyone's comfortable, that sounds like an area that's ripe for disruption to me. So I need to call someone in to shake things up. And, if you want to end up in a Colorado pre-Deion Sanders environment, then keep trucking along just existing, because that's what the Buffaloes were for a long time. Mm-hmm. And, comfort and mediocrity don't lead to results. So if I'm Minnesota ownership, to me, if anything, that's a damning statement that the players really seem to like him, and we're still getting the same stupid results.
Update from the Children's Health Care of Atlanta training ground from Doug Robertson of the AJC. Brad Gazan is not training today, listed as under the weather. So we'll keep an eye on that with Brad, who is going to want to be between the sticks tomorrow for this home match against Montreal. Also on the board, 8:39. Angry Peter Vermes gets to host the Houston Dynamo and Captain Khaki Ben Olsen. Sporting is a plus 104. Your draw is a plus 259, and the Dynamo are a plus 250. What say you, Jared Smith?
Give me the revival of Houston continuing. And I love Peter Vermes, and I like that Kansas City didn't take all of this season lying down. But and it's going to be tricky, because I think it's really easy to go against Houston in this game, because Houston's getting ready for a midweek U.S. Open Cup final against Miami. Mm-hmm. So if they decide to rotate, no one's going to feel bad about it. No one's going to blame them for that. But I think that Ben Olsen is got something special working in Houston, beyond just and not to say they're not going to they might win a trophy. What shape is Messi in? Let me know.
Yeah.
But I think he's got something working for the long-term success of Houston, and it's the stability that they needed. It just didn't necessarily come from the place they expected it. Give me Houston in this.
Nick.
I don't think Ben Olsen can afford to rotate the squad. Captain Khaki can't do that. You have Vancouver at 41 points, Real Salt Lake at 40, San Jose at 40, Portland 39, and Dallas at 38. you are very close to a cliff that can lead you to the outside looking in. So I just don't think that Captain Khaki is going to do that. I think he's just going to try to get the results he can with the players he has. And that doesn't change anything for me in this situation because Houston is going to roll. I think that Sporting needs a massive reboot, and Vermes needs to find his way to a commentator's desk where I think he would do marvelous things. But I just don't think it's it's Houston's day.
No, and Bam with the point. Open Cup is a Champions Cup berth. He would rotate.
And here's the thing, to Nick's point about Vermes, the worst thing that could have happened might have been what's happened this year, which is that they're in the playoff race after a terrible start, and they fought back because it has given them every excuse to say, you know what, we got this. Let's give it another run.
Mm-hmm. And you sit there, and it's like you're right there on the edge. It's very, very Marty Schottenheimer, Gus Malzahn-ish.
Ooh, that's a callback.
Well, because I went.
It's also incredibly cursed.
Yeah, I mean, you get to the edge of making a decision where you think it might be in the benefit of your organization to move on, and then that coach does just enough to sit there and it's like, oh, okay, we're heading in the right direction. We'll stick with him for another year or so or whatever, and then you go through that same cycle, and so that might
also be the Les Miles approach in his last few years at LSU.
Big facts.
Check. 9:30 in Rio Tinto. Nick, speaking of Paisans, Vancouver at RSL, and your boy Vanni Sartini. RSL's a plus 112. Your draw's a plus 268, and the Caps are a plus 220. Nick, what do you think?
The Caps are on the road yet again after going to Houston. That leads to a little bit of mental fatigue. I'm going to take Real Salt Lake.
Jarrett.
Isn't this two Italian managers?
RSL. Who's the manager at RSL? I forgot.
Well, he's American. No, never mind. Sorry, he's from Argentina. Pablo's from Argentina. Never mind.
The Italian last name is there, but it's
Mastrolini. Come on.
Yeah.
Yeah, man. Give me RSL on this one. I like what RSL has working on the daily. Again, they have. Remember that time RSL just waited for LAFC striker to leave the league, then just brought him back in.
Yes.
And then just started burning people's houses down with him.
Yes.
That's a thing that happened, and it's still actively happening.
Yeah. Bam says Chicho's going to get a hat trick in this one. So 10:30, Zombie Timbers hosting Colorado Rapids. Timbers obviously are a big favorite at a minus 172. Draws a plus 3.25. Colorado to win on the road is a plus 440. Nick.
Yeah, Portland all the way. The Rapids are a nuclear disaster, plague-fueled prairie dog blank show. So yeah, I'll take Portland.
Jarrett.
Don't think, just pick Portland. Even I still didn't agree with firing Gio when they did. Also, that's why I don't make these decisions, because now they're on the edge of the playoff picture, and I didn't think they had a shot in hell, but they have gotten results to go their way, but they've also taken care of their business. So give me Portland, because, again, to Nick's point, Colorado is actively involved in a civil war with their fan base.
Mm-hmm.
Stan Kroenke may not actually know if he owns a team or not.
Yeah, he'd have to ask his son Josh.
There was Nutmeg News did an Onion article about Stan Kroenke tries to buy MLS team, not realizing he owns one, and that just hits a little too close to accurate.
Yeah, that's true. By the way, if Portland wins, right now Portland's at the 8. Portland wins, they have a chance to be, if other results go their way, they could be as high as 5th And that's obviously if Vancouver loses at RSL, and then they would be 6th because RSL would be at 43 points. So theoretically, Portland could be in the 6th spot if they win and results go their way this weekend. Late game, Jarrett.
They're doing that thing. They're let's be honest, man. They're kind of doing that thing we thought Miami would do, and Miami could still do it. Portland's just doing it in a little bit of a different way. But they're doing that thing where they just like, hey, we made changes. Then what happened? Then we kind of started winning games, getting things are going our way, and we just started kind of waltzing up the table.
Yep.
More power to you, Portland.
8-4-3 at home this year. Jarrett, your Quakes are hosting Nashville at 10:39. San Jose is a plus 127. Your draw is a plus 243, and Nashville is a plus 211. Since we know where Jarrett's going, Nick,
give me the Fighting Mukhtars.
at a plus 211, he's going to ride that. He's going to
gamble. Is this gambling? Is this gambling or guessing?
Okay, it's juice boxing. Okay, Jarrett, what do you think?
I'm going to take the Quakes. I still don't trust. Okay, I still don't trust Nashville. You're still in a situation where Nashville is entirely driven by Hany Mukhtar 110%, and that West Coast trip is brutal. It's tough. Like, if Nashville drops points here, I'm not going to think worse of them than I already do, because that's a tough trip, kind of a weird place to go play.
Sunday, we've got 2 matches. Messi and friends go visit the Purple team at 7:30. Orlando City is a minus 118. Your draw and Inter Miami are both at a plus 289 in the composite. So, Nick, no Messi, no Alba, no problem?
I think it's going to be a draw.
Okay.
I think Orlando is they're a good enough team to get a draw out of Inter, and this is. I think it's been shown that essentially Tata believes that the Open Cup final is the priority. Mm-hmm. So any sort of extra,
as he 110% should.
Right.
They got a double staring them right in the face.
Yeah, and this is different in my opinion than Houston. You need a lot of stuff to go your way to make the playoffs if you're Miami, even if you win out. But you got to rotate. So this is going to be a draw in my opinion. And you know what, Mr. Nix, if legalities mean nothing to me when it comes to the profane word of Inter.
Right now, Messi and friends are 5 points out of a playoff spot with 6 matches to play. DC has played 30, so they are one of the 30s right now. NYCFC is a 30. But right now, as things stand, Miami, who is 3-10-1 on the road this year, obviously we could do an AM and a PM version of that if we decided to do the math. But right now, they are 5 points out with 6 matches to go. Late game. Go for it.
Watch Inter Miami win this game, and then we got to have a conversation about that win Atlanta had over a Messi-less Miami when they win 2 on the bounce without him.
Mm-hmm. Late game, and probably one of the dudes who is on the nuclear white-hot 3 Mile Island barbecue sauce hot seat, Josh Wolf and Austin FC hosting LAG, who have 5 players out for the season because of injury. Jalen Neal was added to that mix as number 5. LAG on the road at Q2 to take on Austin FC. Austin FC is favored at a minus 111. Draws a plus 304. LAG is a plus 254. And if I had said, Nick, that coming into this game at the beginning of the year, or maybe even a couple months ago, that this would be a battle of 12 and 13 in the Western Conference, what would you have told me?
It's MLS. Anything's possible. Major League Soccer is this bat blank crazy league. You completely. I probably would have been like, oh, okay. A lot of stuff must have gone wrong. But look, this is a dumpster fire game, man. This is one of those games where Apple should bury it. Way like, oops, we had a coding error. We don't know what happened, and just bury this game way down deep in the algorithm so no one can find it. I think it's going to be a disaster zone game. I'll take this is going to be a like a scoreless draw in the worst way possible.
All right, Jarrett, he says scoreless draw. What about you?
Give me Austin. Like, give me just like Druzy dragging them to this, and LA kind of has a little letdown after the emotional victory over Minnesota. But yeah, this is there will be many games this weekend. This is one of them. That's the nicest thing we can say.
Your rundown is Cincinnati Charlotte's on season pass, DC and Red Bulls at Audi.
Speaking of guys who I know I missed that one, but speaking of guys who like need to be like watching over their shoulder for the firing squad, is Christian Lattanzio
and Nick Cushing.
23 points they have dropped from winning positions in 2023. That's how you lose a job.
That's not good. They are under 500 at home and on the road. At home, they are 4-3-8. On the road, they are 3-6-4. Free side of Apple TV has NYC at Red Bull Arena hosting Toronto, LAFC at Philly, New England at Chicago. Season pass has Columbus and Dallas. Free side of Apple TV has Dynamo and Sporting. Season pass has St. Louis at Minnesota. Free side has Vancouver at Salt Lake. Season pass has Colorado at Portland, Nashville at San Jose, and it is an FS1 doubleheader with the Orlando, Miami, Austin, LA game. So FS1, Apple TV. Season pass has Orlando and Miami, and the free side has Austin and LA. So 7:30, 9:30, your Sunday games are an FS1 doubleheader in addition to everything else. And that brings us to the season pass matchup, 7:39 kick. Atlanta hosting CF Montreal. The man in the middle for this one is Rubiel Vasquez. Your ARs, Jeremy Hansen and Andrew Bigelow. Your fourth is Marcos de Oliveira. Your VAR is Yunus Marakchi. Your AVAR is Fabio Tovar. And your juice boxes in this one, Atlanta is a minus 164. The draw is a plus 323. CF Montreal is a plus 418. Nick, let's start with you. What do you think?
I'm really concerned about this magical illness that Guzan's dealing with right now if he's not training today. Mm-hmm. Typically, you would not see anyone held out a training session prior to game day unless it was something significant. Brad's a pretty tough dude, so if Brad's not playing, it's something that's really got him messed up. So if Brad plays, this is a game where Atlanta should dispatch Montreal pretty handily. But if Brad's not playing, then this could be like a really dumb 3-3 draw. And Montreal's got a problem scoring goals, man. I mean, they've only put 29 goals up on the season. That's not great, no matter how you slice it. But they're in eighth, which means they know how to get stupid points when they have to. So this is something that I think is really going to be. It's going to be down to who's playing in goal for Atlanta, unfortunately. But I see Saba scoring, DJ Crazy Times, then Yakumakis, and then we'll throw Jande out there as well. So those would be my 3 goal scorers for Atlanta.
Okay. Bam has Opoku and Duke giving Montreal a 2-0 lead and at 75. Atlanta comes storming back. Ends with a 97th minute winner for Atlanta, ruled out by VAR. So Bam is saying 2-2 draw in this one. Jarrett, what do you think?
I think Atlanta ultimately takes care of business. It might not be pretty because Minnesota doesn't let you play a pretty game.
No, Montreal.
Montreal, sorry. Whatever, got Minnesota on the brain because I'm mad at Inchi for pretty much everything.
There you go.
Montreal doesn't really let you play a pretty game. I remember Losada is kind of from an adjacent school to Bielsa, to that hard pressing system, and you've seen how confrontational they can be. Where this game gets decided for me is in the last 15 minutes of halves, which for Atlanta bodes well for them, because we saw this with his team in DC, and we've seen this with his team in Montreal. When you press that hard, that aggressively, for that long, you can't do it for 45 minutes and then get a break and do it for 45 minutes. You just can't, the human body can't do it. So you're going to have those stretches in the halves, and I think it plays to Atlanta's advantage, where we've seen them kind of hit lulls in the middle of the first half at times.
Mm-hmm.
The fact that Montreal won't be able to keep the pedal down for 45 minutes, then for 45 more minutes, I think, especially considering everybody played in the midweek, they could absolutely run out of gas at the end of the game, which, again, Atlanta leads the league in goals scored in the last 15 minutes of games. I think it's going to be a close one for stretches of the game, and then Atlanta puts them away late because they've been so lethal at the end of games, and Montreal's just going to run out of gas because with that style, you just run out of gas. You can't sprint that pressure for that long without having let-offs. And yeah, they're fighting for their playoff lives. I think they just ran out of gas in the end, and Atlanta takes it.
Nick, can you break down
2-1 or 3-1 Atlanta?
Okay, so Nick, can you break down the idea of a team that loves to press and the fatigue that comes? Because I know that your markers are traditionally the last 10 minutes of halves because of this kind of activity. Break down what you're staring at here.
So essentially, it depends on what your pressing cues are and what your rule is, right? So do you have like an 8-10 rule? Do you have like a 10-10 rule where you press for 8 seconds or 10 seconds and then drop to a standardized defensive position? And then the other 10 is how long, what's the rule for putting a shot back on frame? So in the case of a pressing team, if you come out of the gate and your pressing cue is when the ball leaves the keeper's foot for either one of the center backs or one of the outside backs, and you start that press right away, you, as Jarrett said, you can only do it for so long. And really where you start to see the fatigue first is going to be from the 6 or 8 position, depending upon how they're set up, because you're having to cover so much more ground and really get caught in the yo-yo effect. And when that gap first appears, the key thing with pressing is everyone has to meet their mark at the same time, because that's when you create that sort of that panic effect, where the player with the ball, who you want to receive the ball, Jedi mind trick, put the ball here. Okay, that's an open person. We're putting the ball there. That's exactly what we want you to do, because now we're bringing the chainsaws out. The wolf pack starts closing in. And when that person with the ball looks up, they're going to do one of two things. They're either going to make a really stupid pass to someone who's covered, where there's one of our players is behind the opposition or right next to the opposition to intercept the pass. There's somebody in position to jump the passing lane if there's not enough power put on the ball, or we want that player to panic and hoof it, which turns it into a 50-50 ball, which our back line can handle, and then we start our attack immediately. But that 6 or 8, when they start getting tired, that they aren't able to meet their pressing assignment on time, on schedule. And when that happens, you give them an outlet, right? You give your opponent an outlet to find that pass, which then breaks your press. Okay, so it's 1, 2, 3, and you're down the field. And because you're asking your back line to play high to compress the field, there's a lot of real estate between the keeper and the back line. So you can keep the pressure up early, but the last 10 minutes, that 6 or 8 is going to get tired. Your center backs are going to get tired because of having to track back on certain situations where the press does get broken. And when that happens, opportunities will present themselves for the other team. And if you have clean, crisp passing and you are able to play in a phone booth for the first 15 minutes effectively and survive that scoreless, you will be in a position to really run one of these pressing teams. You hear it every Saturday at kids games. What happens when the keeper gets the ball for a goal kick? Get wide, get wide. That is what every pressing team wants you to do. They want you to go wide, create as much space as humanly possible. Because when we recover the ball, you're not able to collapse into an effective defensive position quickly. But if you invite the press by staying close, right? We're not going to spread out super wide. We're going to stay close. We're going to do a lot of yo-yo with the ball. It's going to go forward. It's going to go back. It's going to go forward. It's going to go back. And what happens is that puts that exhaustion meter just a little closer to empty early on in the game. But you must survive the first 15 minutes so you can really exploit them in the last 10 minutes. That was my sort of viewpoint of pressing and how to beat a press if you are not one of these psycho pressing teams.
Jared, how much rotation are you anticipating here? Because we had kind of pegged the lineup from the weekend to the midweek, anticipating that Tyler Wolff and Saba would start, considering they came in as subs on the weekend. They did, in fact, start. Mosqueda, Shande Silva come in. They're the ones who are the subs. What are you looking at, especially up top with this lineup and possibly even in the midfield? Do we see Adamar Sejdic? Does Hasetu start? What are you staring at?
I'm thinking what you did against Miami. There's a reason you were able to split your wingers the way you did. No one's played 90 minutes back to back to back. You've been splitting them, 60 minutes, 30 minutes, 40 minutes, whatever it might be. You've been able to try and split those minutes and minimize the wear and tear. I would love to see Shande Silva and Saba Lobshanica from the start, because we still haven't seen like that triumvirate starting in front of Almada with them and Yorgos. We still haven't seen that in full effect. And maybe you don't pull that trigger right now. Maybe you use the week to get everybody back, next week to get everybody back, and then you do it for your stretch run your last few games because you have some absolutely hellacious games to end the season with.
Mm-hmm.
But I personally, I think you see what you saw last weekend with guest appearance potentially by Machop Chol, who was on the bench in DC. But and again, also because we talked about this last time, that flight from Montreal to Atlanta ain't a hop, skip, and a jump. By the way, that's a long ass flight.
Mm-hmm.
Montreal ain't close. That's a haul.
Yeah.
But I think Machop Chol could factor into this as well. If you need fresh legs, if you need someone that who provides something different than Mosqueda's raw speed, like Chol's ability to just be a bit of a wild card physically, could factor in here. I would assume you get Mateus from the start and see if you can get 90 out of Mateus Hasetu. William Ba is my bigger question. Like, does William Ba have 90 minutes? Does he have 70 minutes? He's run an obscene amount. That's more so my question. Not having Ozzy Alonso, as he's been banged up, I think also hurts you, because you'd love to be able to put his veteran presence on the field. So does it become Santiago Sosa, who you say, hey man, I need more minutes out of you, and I need you to be clean on the ball against a really tricky team, and then you got to figure out what's the right combination, because William Ba Mateus Hasetu has been an amazing combination. I thought Jay Fortune was solid last time out against DC. A couple of mistakes, but worked hard to clean them up. I thought he was solid considering you threw him into that situation. But if it's not those two? Is it Sosa and Sejdic? Like, what combination gives you the most success to play through the middle there and to connect play to those guys up top and to connect play to Thiago Almada?
And I know that there's a lot of stuff that we've been able to garner and glean from relationships and things like that. We talked about, Nick, the relationship early on anyway with Saba and Tyler Wolff. They seem to have found a symbiotic relationship early on, and it has been fun to see Saba in these flashes. I'm just anticipating a 90-minute Saba where good luck trying to keep up with DJ Crazy Times.
Yeah, I think the shared focal point between the two is pace, right? You have a player in Wolf who is fast enough to keep up with Saba when he goes on one of these, these crazy warp drive sprints that he seems to be capable of going on. And Wolf is going to start finding himself in the positions that he needs to be in to receive some of these really crazy off the wall back heel side foot reverse, St. Louis slide effect passes that he's going to be getting. So it's, every good magician has an assistant.
Yes.
That knows exactly where to be when the payoff for the trick occurs. And Wolf is going to start making himself a very, very entertaining and valuable assistant for DJ Crazy Times, the greatest magician in the East.
The greatest magician. Couple of things before we go. Don't forget, tomorrow, 1 o'clock at Reverb by Hard Rock. It is Match Day Live with all of us getting you ready for the full day of tailgating involving Atlanta and Montreal. And the first 2 people, 1-2, and I'm going to get the wording on this correct because our friend Scott Flood and the Flood Project, they have a very, very special thing planned for anybody that wants to show. Here's the deal. First 2 people on site for the show, Saturday, 1-2 at Reverb by Hard Rock across the street from Mercedes-Benz. First 2 people on site for the show win a pair of upgraded premium seats to the final home match against Columbus on October 7. Then after 2 o'clock, then you can work your way to the supporters tailgate, go hang out, do your thing. Weather's supposed to be great. So, reminder, Reverb by Hard Rock tomorrow at 1, Match Day Live. First 2 people on site for the show will win a pair of upgraded premium seats to United's final home match against Columbus on October 7. That in and of itself is very, very cool. Broadcast plan 6:30, 92.9 The Game on the Odyssey app for Mike and Jason as they get ready for Atlanta and CF Montreal. Then once again on Sunday afternoon, MLS Next Pro regular season finale. All Eastern Conference games are at 2 o'clock. All Western Conference games are at 5, which means Atlanta United 2 on the SDH network in Columbus at historic Crew Stadium can play spoiler and make things difficult for Crew 2 as they try and chase after the 3 seed in the Eastern Conference. So we'll have pregame at 1:45, and we'll have the action for you at 2 o'clock on the final day of the regular season for MLS Next Pro. Jarrett, final thoughts before we go.
I believe you're in a situation if you're Atlanta to take care of business and get a playoff spot locked up. That is step 1. You can only, at this point, because of games like DC, where you let things get away from you, you can only take advantage of what's in front of you, and you can't worry about that. You need to win this game, lock in playoffs, then start worrying about where you sit in the playoffs.
Nick, final thoughts.
The back line for Atlanta better be working as a unit tomorrow. No matter who is between the pipes, either it's going to be a Brad who's not at 100%, or it's going to be a backup, which means that communication will be the key. The back line needs to be locked in, no distraction moments. And for the 6 and 8, whoever that may be, no stupid pop-up passes going back. Don't do that against this team. Brave the first 15 minutes. Do that. You'll survive and advance.
For Nick, for Jarrett, I'm just John. Thanks for hanging out with us for another go-round of Soccer Down Here. Thanks to Greg Garza and our friends at Beyond Goals Mentoring for hanging out with us in hour number 1. Another busy weekend. Looking forward to seeing everybody at the Benz. Mucha platial, play it safe. Since it's the end of the show, that means I get to do this. We'll be back at it again tomorrow, Match Day Live from Reverb by Hard Rock. And then there's games and things, and we'll be back at it again on Monday morning to break it all down. Once again, end of the show, that means I get to do this. We'll see you Monday. Actually, we'll see you Saturday. Then we'll see you later Saturday. Then we'll see you Monday.